accidents, no coincidences, no mishaps, and no escapes. What you have to realize is that we're all just a mouse that a cat has by the tail. Every single move we make, from the mundane to the monumental, the red light that we stop at or run, the people we have sex with or won't with us, the airplanes that we ride or walk out of. It's all part of death's sadistic design, leading to the grave.
Design. Does that mean if you figure out the design, you can cheat death?
Alex, you've already done that by walking off the plane. Your friend's departure shows that death has a new design for all of you. Now you have to figure out how and when it's coming back at you. Play your hunch, Alex, if you think you can get away with it. But remember, the risk of cheating the plan, of disrespecting the design, could incite a fury that could terrorize even the Grim Reaper. And you don't even want to fuck with that, Mac Daddy.
Hello everyone, and welcome back. And today we are going to be talking about Final Destination and Death's design. Now, this is a video I've had planned out for quite a while, and I thought, you know what, I might as well finally talk about it since I had to cancel my previous video about the top 10 best Fate servants because of my strike. And since this is a video that I can use as little footage and audio from the movie as possible, lessening my chances of getting a bogus strike, then I'm going to do it just to be on the safe side. However, with that out of the way, I'm here to answer the question that people who have seen Final Destination have asked. Can you cheat death? And that's what we're going to answer today. Because usually if you ask people who have seen Final Destination, they will tell you, you can't cheat death, they always die at the end, it's unavoidable. Well, is that really true? That's what we're going to find out today. So, I thought let's start out with the rules that we know and are explained to us. The first and foremost rule that I think everyone understands is if you have cheated a natural disaster and you end up on death's list, you will die and must die in the order that you were intended to. And I'll get into why this is in a little bit. So you will die in the order that you were originally intended to. And while not everyone is given the ability to have premonitions, because it is vaguely hinted at in the series that those who do have the premonitions, Kimberly, Sam, Nick, Alex, and Wendy, it is hinted at in the series but never outright stated that these people are psychics, and when they were confronted with the sudden lapse of danger, it triggered a premonition. And it further triggered more premonitions depending on their level of psychic ability, if that makes any sense. Which explains why some characters had better abilities and premonitions than others. Some characters it was extremely strong, and others it was incredibly vague, whereas with Wendy, her powers to see premonitions tended to be weaker than someone like Nick, who was given constant and much more powerful premonitions to be able to see who was going to die. Whereas Wendy only ever got 2 premonitions, one of them only showing up when it was too late, eventually leading to her death, hinting at that these people seem to have some level of psychic ability to be able to have these premonitions, which the series seems to hint at. So depending on your level of psychic ability, you may or may not be able to have premonitions. However, there is another rule that Clear explains. Even if you can't see the premonitions, even if you are not one of the people who gets the premonitions, it is still possible for you to see the signs of death, as Clear was able to see the bus before it tried to kill Alex, or the pigeons with Kimberly, or with Roy and the man with the hooks. So if you pay attention, you can notice the signs of death before it comes for you and potentially act accordingly before death. And there's one final rule, and this is the most important rule. You cannot commit suicide. And this has been shown constantly throughout the series, that you can't just simply kill yourself, as it's not your time. So if you tried to kill yourself, it wouldn't work. Death will prevent it. However, though, there is a catch, and we will get into that when I talk about the methods that can be used to beat death. However, I thought it was important to go over the rules first. Now that we have gone over the rules, let's discuss the solutions, or the methods for beating death, and get to the answer of, can you defeat death? Now, for the first method, we are going to discuss intervening in one's death so that it will skip that person. Now, I'm starting out with this one because it is the least effective method. It has been constantly shown throughout the Final Destination franchise that intervening in someone's death so that it skips them is extremely inefficient. It doesn't work. All it does is, yes, it will indeed skip you, but all that happens is if the next person in the list dies, then you're basically fucked, because all you're doing at that point is just hoping it doesn't come back full circle and get you. So not only do you have to constantly be on your guard, but even if you do intervene in someone's death and it skips them, you have to intervene in the next person's death. And then once you keep going down the line, it is going to inevitably come back full circle to you. So you would have to constantly be close to the people on the list, basically being together with them as much as possible, being in constant contact, looking out for signs to make sure that you can intervene in time, and just not a reliable method. Now sure, if you're smart like Kimberly, and you hand all the people on the list a phone, and if someone has a premonition and they tell you to avoid this, and you know that you're next on the list, sure, it's possible to stave off death for a certain period of time, but all you're going to be doing is just hoping and praying for the best. And as we've seen, there's some instances where you will be put into positions where trying to get someone to intervene in your death is nearly impossible, such as if you are on a plane, or there's an area where something could easily blow up or crush you out of nowhere because you can't see it coming. So realistically, it's not going to work for you. The best you could hope for is intervening in someone's death, having someone on the list lock themselves in a bomb shelter where something could not possibly kill them, and then just hope that that person eventually dies of old age, and that you die of old age or natural causes, and it's just not a method that's going to work. At best, it will buy you time. Now, the next method is the one that we know of that from number 2 that actually saved Kimberly, because there is actually a survivor of Final Destination, Kimberly and the cop. She never died. And she is proof that Bloodworth's advice of new life beating death does actually hold water. So, how would you go about doing this? Well, there are 2 ways of going about it. Now, granted, this is in the alternate cut, so it can't be guaranteed to work. I mean, within the context of the script, it works because that's how it was originally written before they changed the ending. But if someone who was never intended to die, or someone who was on the list, actually, let me start over. So basically, if someone who is on death's list was to have a child, or they were to die and then be brought back to life after a certain period of time, then they could, in fact, cheat death just like Kimberly did. Now, unfortunately for Kimberly and Clear, the pregnant woman on Route 180 was never intended to die. And the reason for this is this. Death kills because of balance. Here's the best way I can explain it. Remember how in Death Note, everyone had a lifespan, and Shinigami would kill human beings and add their lifespan onto their own? Well, that's basically the same thing here. We all have a time limit, and once it runs out, death is coming for us. Now, what this is from what I've come to understand about Final Destination, is death seems to be keeping everything in balance. And when death is shorted, then he is not happy because he has to maintain his quota. To quote Thanos, if life is left unchecked, life will cease to exist. It's reasonable to assume that death must maintain a certain quota of life and death, as Bloodworth brought up in the second one. For every life, there is a death. For every death, there is a life, balancing out. When people cheat death and elude these disasters, they are essentially fucking with the balance that death is trying to maintain. And as Bloodworth stated, only new life can defeat death. So, if you were on death's list, you would either have to have a child with someone who is also on the list and conceive a life that was never meant to exist, or to possibly help your chances, maybe have sex with someone who isn't on the list, and then have that person or any friends or allies you have around continuously intervene to the point where you eventually have the child, and you could effectively beat death. However, though, this method is in the alternate ending, which is not canon, and since the alternate ending that confirms Kimberly's death is not a part of the canon, to be fair, I won't count it, so we'll focus on this one. If you can kill yourself and somehow manage to be brought back to life like Kimberly did, you would be able to gain new life, and it will force death to start anew, as Bloodworth stated. And so doing this is going to be tricky, though, because, as I've explained earlier, you can't just simply kill yourself. So there are 2 ways you would have to go about this. it would have to be your turn on death's list, and you would have to find a way to kill yourself, but then immediately be revived. So you would either have to drown yourself and have someone bring you to the hospital, or overdose on pills, and again be brought back into the hospital and be resuscitated. But this is very risky, because since you are next on the list, you are vulnerable to death. So you have to be very cautious. The more smart method would be finding someone on the list who isn't next, but you are, attempt to kill you, but revive you. So effectively, let's say there are 3 survivors left, and you are next on death's list, and you volunteer for one of the remaining survivors to drown you in a lake, and then after a certain period of time, revive you. Now, the time is very important, because you see, it has been explained by scientists and doctors that when you die, your brain actually remains functioning for a certain period of time. So, since that is the case, you are actually technically alive for a certain period of time. And the key here is you have to find a way to resuscitate yourself while you are actually dead, thus gaining new life. One of the more reliable ways of doing this would be drowning yourself or attempting an overdose. So the more reliable method would not be through suicide, because that wouldn't be guaranteed to work. Though Kimberly managed to make it work out for her, she did also have to have the cop there to even get her into the hospital, so it would be vital to have another survivor close by to assist you. Now, this will actually defeat death, and it will force death to start all over, which means he will move on to another group of people, and whether or not they survive is irrelevant. You have cheated death, and like Kimberly, you will be able to live the rest of your life with your brand new life that you now have. And this will actually work. Now, there is, however, another method that you can use to defeat death. However, this one is the most dangerous method, and definitely wouldn't be the most reliable. I mean, it'll work, but it's also very dangerous, and that is stealing someone's life.
You changed things on that bridge. There's a wrinkle in reality, and that wrinkle is you.
So what? We're doomed to die? I mean, is that it? We just got our lives back, so what kind of fucked up quorum is that?
Are you saying that we can't stop this?
You were supposed to die on that bridge. You're not supposed to be here. You're short of death. So you let death have somebody else in your place, and then you take their spot in the realm of the living, all the days and years that they've yet to live. And they take your place in death. Then the books are balanced.
Wait a minute. We kill someone. We get their life? Is that what you're telling me?
I don't make the rules. I just clean up after the game is over.
Now, this one will require a little bit more deeper explanation, because there are many people that adamantly claim that this method actually doesn't work because Sam and Nate both died, even though they both killed someone and gained their life. Well, here's the thing about this method. Yes, if you do kill someone and gain their life, it will help rebalance things. However, though, here's the thing you have to take into account. Nate died not because it didn't work, but because the person he killed already had a short lifespan. As it was stated at the end of the movie, he was doomed to die any day now because of a tumor in his brain. So when he gained that person's life, all that happened was he gained the few small days he had left, which is what led to his death, because he was already doomed to die. And As for Peter, here is where things get a little bit complicated, and it does cause a little bit of a rift. Now, we know that while you can't kill yourself, it is possible for other people to kill you. Now, as we've seen in the second movie, it was revealed to us that the survivors of Flight 180 caused a rift in Death's design, leading to people who were supposed to die cheating Death because of the survivors of Flight 180. All their deaths led to all the survivors of the second one surviving, which is why Death had to close the rift and work backwards from there. So you can interfere in other people's deaths or take their own. But here's the thing. You have to kill someone who was never intended to die. Now, this is the important part. If you just kill another person that's already on the list, all that's going to happen is it's just going to skip to the next person, effectively doing nothing. All you would be doing is helping Death. And a quick interesting thing, there is a Final Destination novel where the main character actually is given a deal by Death. If that character kills all the survivors for him, then she will be allowed to live. Which adds on to the whole point that for Death, it's not so much that he's evil, he is just doing his job in maintaining the balance of life and death. And if you're willing to help him regain that balance, then you can be spared from Death's wrath. And while this method will work, again, you have to kill someone who was never intended to die. Now, you could possibly try killing the other survivors, but there's no guarantee that Death will spare you unless maybe you directly make a deal with him, like the main character in the book. But getting back to the original point, the reason why it didn't work for Sam is because all he did was cause a rift. When Peter killed Block and gained his life, he was not intended to die. However, though, when Peter was killed by Sam, all that it did was cause a rift because Peter was technically on Death's list. So all he did was just cause a rift and fuck everything up. See, the reason why Peter went after Molly is because Molly was never intended to die. She didn't die in Sam's premonition. She made it across the bridge safely, and Peter questioned, "Why do you deserve to live?" So, had Peter killed Molly, he would have gained her life, and the chain would have been broken. However, though, Sam fucked that up by killing Peter. So it is important that you kill someone who was never intended to die. However, though, here is another catch. The key thing here is killing someone who is guaranteed to have a long lifespan. For example, if you decided to go up to, say, a cancer patient or someone who had a bad disease and they were going to die anyway, and you decided to mercy kill them, that will do you no good, because all you have done is just gain the lifespan of someone who is doomed to die of a fatal illness, and effectively you are fucking yourself. It would also not be in your best interest to kill any cops, firefighters, anyone who works a very dangerous job, like a construction worker or any job that has a very high workplace fatality rate, because all you're doing is just risking gaining a lifespan that is already short to begin with. It is important and vital that you go after someone who is in peak health and is guaranteed to have a very long lifespan. Or this may be dark, but you could also possibly consider taking out a child, which will guarantee you a long lifespan as long as that child does not have any kind of disease or anything that would shorten their life. Otherwise, you will just end up like Nate. Now, the problem here is, again, this is a dangerous method because it will cause you to have to end up killing someone in some way in order to gain their life. So you will have to be very cautious about who you kill, and you'll have to be cautious to make sure that you don't get arrested by the cops, because if that happens, then everything you have done was for nothing, which is why Peter had to get rid of witnesses after taking out Block. Now, as dangerous as this method is, it will actually save you from death, because you are helping redress the balance that was caused by you cheating death in the first place. And as long as you take someone's life who was intended to have a long lifespan to begin with, you should be able to live the rest of your life until you eventually die of natural causes with the new life that you have been given. So, back to the original question, can you cheat death? The answer is yes. If you defeat death through new life or taking the life of someone else, you can in fact beat death. It is possible. So that is that. What do you all think? Do you think that there's something I missed? Am I taking anything out of context? Or do you believe that none of these methods will work, and that as long as you're on death, because it is the theme of Final Destination, death is inevitable, and it will come for you anyway, regardless of what you do? Please let me know what you think, and I'll see you guys around for the next video. I really hope you enjoyed this.
Dong, I know you can hear me. Open up the door. I only wanna play alone.